Welcome to the Discover Health podcast, where we explore the power of gut health, nutrition, and lifestyle to help you feel your best every day. I'm Dr. Josh Sharp, your guide on this journey to better digestion, more energy, and overall well-being. Each week, we'll dive into expert insights, practical tips, and real-life strategies to help you discover health. Ready to start discovering? Let's hit the trail. Welcome back to another episode of Discover Health Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Joshua Sharp, and today we're talking about healing from isolation and how isolation can be such a major hindrance to healing. So healing is not just a physical process, it's actually relational, it's emotional, and it's spiritual. And what I've found over the years is that chronic illness often pushes us or pushes people into isolation. And isolation actually can stop or slow down the healing process. So today, if you feel like you're all alone in your struggle with chronic illness, like Lyme disease or mold illness or chronic fatigue or something else, this podcast is for you. Or if you're someone you know that needs to take a step forward to change their health trajectory, or if you're feeling like, yeah, I really need to do something to improve my health, but you really haven't started yet, or you just find yourself researching for weeks or months or years, and you haven't really made any significant steps or taken any significant steps, then this podcast is for you. If you're struggling with symptoms of fatigue or gut issues or unexplained inflammation or aches and pains, maybe brain fog or other symptoms, but you're suffering in silence, this podcast is for you. So I just want to encourage you, if you've made it through the previous 5 episodes in this series, 6 Hindrances to Healing, congratulations. Great job. It was a long process, but it was a powerful series for me to prepare and for me to share. And I've learned a lot putting these episodes together. And I have had a lot of time of self-reflection, times of learning from myself, basically, as I'm researching and reading, preparing these messages, preparing these podcasts. I've had a lot of time to really look inward and just kind of figure out where I'm falling short or where I need help in these areas. And so I hope these messages have done that for you. They've caused you to maybe just see what's been holding you back from healing. Maybe it's you're blaming God, you're insinuating that God's to blame, or maybe you're seeing that there's injustice, it's not fair, or maybe there's something else standing in your way, and maybe it's isolation. And so today, hopefully we can break through that. If you're new to this, if you have not listened to any of the messages in this series, there's 5 other episodes, and this is part 6, but we're talking about 6 hindrances to healing. And this is a series that I adapted from a sermon that I heard from Pastor George Lakatos, and he preached a sermon on 2 Chronicles chapter 20. And at the end, he shared some takeaways, and he called them 6 hindrances to worship. And as I was reviewing my notes, I thought, these hindrances aren't just hindrances to worship, they're also hindrances to healing. And so I've actually adapted his alliteration. Pastors love to use alliteration. They like to make points, and they like to use the same letter or start it with the same word, something like that. And that's always exciting. It makes the sermon more exciting and memorable. And so I've adapted his alliteration for my own purposes. So shout out to Grace Community Church in Smithville, Missouri, and Pastor George. But this final hindrance to healing, it wasn't one of his I words, letter I words. It's one that I inserted myself, but today's topic in regards to healing is isolation, or feeling like you're alone in your health journey or your health struggle, feeling like you have to go through this process on your own, or maybe you're just someone that doesn't recognize the benefits and blessings of community, of healing in community. So what are some ways that we are actually isolated on our health journey? Well, I've come up with 3 different types of people who I've found over the years in practice that have become isolated. And the first one we're going to talk about is someone who is isolated through invalidation. I'm sorry to use even more alliteration and even more I words, but it just fit here. But this person is isolated through invalidation. This is a person that feels like they're alone because they don't feel like others understand what they're going through. Or possibly they've been to doctors, or possibly they've been to healthcare providers and tests haven't shown positive, or maybe the doctor didn't really understand what was going on, and they've actually literally invalidated their concerns. Or possibly there's a spouse at home, a husband or a wife, who's minimized or maybe explained away the struggles or the issues and really invalidated the struggle that this person is having. Or possibly you've been told by family, or you've been told by even doctors. I've seen this so many times that it's all in your head. There's nothing wrong. It's all in your head. So that's the first type of person that struggles with isolation. The second is isolation because of independence. Isolation because of independence. And this person feels like they've got the health issues. It's my problem. And so I need to be the one that figures it out. I'm going to do this on my own. This is the DIY type. If you remember from a past episode, we talked about the DIY type. And this person, they've told themselves, no one can do it like I can do it. And they feel like the issues aren't that bad. Maybe they've minimized their own issues, or maybe they've just thought, I can just figure this out on my own, or I need to figure this out on my own. But this person oftentimes would say something like, I can't trust anyone to really help me. And so this person is struggling in isolation. And we're going to talk about how to break out of that type of isolation from independence. Then the third type, the last type here, is isolation through invisible suffering. And so this person may think that complaining is for wimps, or maybe no one wants to hear about my problems. Or maybe sometimes this person has a deep struggle that no one knows about, and even their own spouse, until there's a critical crash or until there's a health crisis. They didn't talk about it. They didn't mention it. They didn't bring it up. They felt like they didn't want to bother somebody. This person might say something like, everyone has their own problems, and I don't want to be a burden. Or maybe they think that, well, people have enough of their own issues to worry about. They've got enough worries and concerns. I don't want to add to the list. And so this person has isolated themselves with invisible suffering. So why is isolation a bad thing? And what is isolation to begin with? Well, isolation, at least for the three types of people that I've listed here, it can be a really dangerous trap. And chronic illness can be isolating due to invisible symptoms or maybe misunderstood diagnoses. And sometimes because of physical limitations, you just don't feel good. And so it's hard to want to go be around people and go, as my wife would say, quote unquote, be a person when you don't feel well, when you have no energy, when you've got headaches, when you've got extreme fatigue, you're exhausted, you don't feel like it. And so it's easy to become isolated. And I'm here to tell you that isolation isn't just a side effect of illness. It can actually become a barrier to recovery. And when I say a barrier, I mean a wall. I mean a mountain. It can become a huge barrier to recovery. So why is isolation so dangerous? Well, according to research by Holt and Lundstad and Company in 2010, and this was pointed out in the book, The Community Cure by James Maskell, a quote from them is, social isolation is as harmful to your health as smoking 15 cigarettes per day. I'm going to read that again. Think about that. Social isolation is as harmful to your health as smoking 15 cigarettes per day. Want to know what it's like to be a smoker? You don't need to actually pick up a pack of cigarettes. Just be alone, and you can find out the effects to your health by isolation. Maskell, the author of that book, The Community Cure, he even points out that connection is the most powerful medicine that we're not prescribing. And so that would be a weird thing, is for your doctor to prescribe that you go be in a group of people, go make friends, go be in a group, go find community as part of your healing journey. It's hard to imagine a doctor actually prescribing that. But when you think about the power and the effects on your health of smoking 15 cigarettes per day, that's like 3/4 of a pack of cigarettes or something like that. When you think about the effect that that would have on your health, and then engaging a community, I mean, that could be so powerful. So, what are some of the risks? According to research, what are some of the risks of isolation? Well, one of those risks include increased inflammation, increased stress hormone production, and a physical toll from chronic stress. So stress levels are higher, inflammation is higher, and stress hormones are all higher when you're isolated. So next time you go to think, oh, maybe I just want to stay home alone tonight, think twice, think again, go find friends, go find community, be part of community, and watch how that affects your health, both mentally but also physically. Isolation risk, there's more. It actually weakens your immune function, and it has a negative impact on your gut health. There's a lack of oxytocin, which is a hormone that makes you feel good and feel connected. Moms get it when they are nursing a baby, and also husbands and wives get a release of oxytocin whenever they have physical intimacy. We'll keep this very G rated, but physical intimacy that helps increase the feeling of connection. And oxytocin has a lot of beneficial effects to your health. Lack of community or isolation increases depression. It also increases anxiety, and it also increases the likelihood of giving up healing efforts. Remember, we talked about in another episode learned helplessness. Well, isolation, being alone, contributes to that learned helplessness. And isolation removes one of the most critical factors in sustained lifestyle change, and that is accountability and support. If I said I want to do something, I want to drink, 10 glasses of water per day amongst a group of friends, the next time I'm with that group of friends, one of them may ask me, or maybe they may not even ask me, but I might think, well, they could ask me about drinking the water, so I better actually do it. And just that little connection to I've told someone that I'm going to do this, that produces accountability. But if nobody else is around to hear it, there's no accountability. So accountability is so important, and so is support. So why is community a catalyst, or why is community a booster for healing? Well, there's shared hope in community. So when you're in a group of people dealing with similar issues, and you're seeing those people improve, you're seeing those people get better, it actually boosts the belief that healing is possible. And so you actually benefit from a placebo plus people effect. So you get a positive placebo effect that, oh man, they can heal and they've got similar things and they're getting better. Maybe I can get better too. And that hope actually benefits your ability to heal, and it has a positive effect. We already talked about it, but peer accountability. So you're more likely to follow through with habits when others are watching and whenever others are walking with you. One reason why I love to do Sunday school, one reason why I love to do Bible studies with other believers is it holds you accountable to be reading the word. It holds you accountable to be active in your faith. And not that you should have to have that, but God is pretty wise and he kind of knows some stuff. And he kind of set it up where we're supposed to meet together and we're supposed to be in groups of other believers. And if you've ever read the New Testament, hopefully you've realized that the majority, or we'll just say a lot of the New Testament, revolves around how to get along with other believers. Meaning, if you're not in community with other believers, lots of the New Testament isn't really applying to your life, and that's not a great thing. And so being in community is part of God's plan. And so when you're with others, you're more likely to follow through with habits. You're more likely to get support, and so you're more likely to follow through. Now, another factor involved in healing a community is actual biological safety. And so when you're in a group that you connect with, a group of people that you feel safe around, that feeling of safety in a group, in community, actually stimulates your vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve, this huge, huge nerve that comes from your brainstem and it goes to all of your organs. But one of its primary effects is actually reducing inflammation, especially in the gut. And so when you're in amongst a group of people and you're perceiving safety, that actually stimulates the vagus nerve and you get an anti-inflammatory effect and you get a boost of healing being in that group. There's a great theory out there called the polyvagal theory, and I think Stephen Porges is the founder, or at least the primary researcher there, and Cozzolino also. But there's a study out there called the neuroscience of human relationships, and it's a really great thing to know about. But there is power in being in a group that you feel safe with, that you feel connected to. So being part of a church or a Bible study, or being part of a support group, or being part of a group of people that you feel safe around is so, so great. Now, another benefit is story healing. And essentially what I'm talking about here is telling your story, communicating to others what's going on, and then also listening. It can't just be one person telling their story all of the time. You also need to listen, but hearing other stories, it actually brings about coherence. And then there's validation, and then there's growth. And coherence is essentially alignment of frequency. And so as you hear other people's story and that story, quote unquote, resonates with you, and your story, quote unquote, resonates with others, there's connection there. And so that actually helps stimulate and bring about real healing. Another thing that is so beneficial about community is reduced shame. You stop feeling like you're the only one with this issue. And that can really lighten the emotional burden that you feel while struggling with a chronic health issue. So groups don't just support behavior change, they change biology. And that's a quote by James Maskell, again, the author of the book called Community Cure. So there's 3 types of isolation. We've already talked about those, but how do we break free? How do we break free if you are isolated? So let's talk about the first type, the person that's isolated by invalidation. This person would say, no one understands, or no one gets it, or I'm alone in this. They've been dismissed or maybe just misunderstood by doctors, by friends, or by family. Hey friend, real quick, if you've been enjoying this episode and you're looking for high quality professional grade supplements that you can trust, I've got something for you. Check out our curated online store at discoverhealth.gethealthy.store. We've handpicked practitioner grade supplements that can be delivered straight to your door. And to say thank you for listening, you can use the code FIRST10 to get 10% off your order. That's discoverhealth.gethealthy.store. Your health simplified. And if I'm honest, I've been the person that's been the invalidator before. When my wife's health really started to take a turn for the worse, I know this is going to be shocking for many of you, but I wasn't the most compassionate person. So for those of you that know me and you know that maybe I'm not necessarily known for my compassion, which is really weird to be in a profession of healing, to be in a profession of caring for others. Let me just say that my compassion levels have dramatically improved over time, but I wasn't always known for my compassion. But let me offer any of you husbands out there that might be listening to this, let me offer you some advice. This isn't something that I personally did. I just heard about this. Okay, it wasn't me. It was just some guy that I know that did this. But I thought I would just share it with you. Okay, so when your wife tells you that she doesn't feel good and that she doesn't have the energy to get out of bed, let me tell you what not to say. Don't say buck up. So what I've learned through 18 years of marriage is that the phrase buck up, it does very little to inspire or motivate your wife. I know that's a surprise. I know that is shocking to most of you men out there. And I was surprised to find that out personally as well when I heard from other guys who would say that, because I would never say that. But when I heard that from other guys, I was shocked to learn that that didn't inspire and motivate their wives whenever they said the phrase buck up. Because immediately, normally when I hear the phrase buck up, I think, oh, wow, my problems aren't so bad. And now I feel better. My headache is gone. My energy levels have improved just hearing those two words. It really stirred something inside of me. And now I can go on about my day and I can cook and clean for my family. Because when I hear that, that's what I think of. So I know it's surprising to most of you men out there, but what I can say, again, after hearing this from a friend, not from personal experience, is what buck up, it does inspire. It really does inspire and it does motivate. But what it inspires is quick rage. And it also motivates arguments that you were completely unprepared for and completely unready for. But also, and on a serious note here, phrases like buck up and attitudes like buck up or just deal with it, it also will crush your wife's spirit. So buck up and similar sentiments like that, they don't inspire health progress, but they make the person feel invalidated. It makes them feel rejected or like their feelings and their struggles don't matter. So in essence, it's almost like you're saying your problems don't matter. You've got things to do, so get busy. And I can tell you that that's not helpful. So instead, as a spouse of someone that's dealing with chronic health issues, maybe you could try asking something like, where are you feeling stuck right now? Or how are you feeling right now? What's got you feeling stuck right now? And then maybe you could ask something like, during this struggle or with what's going on, what thoughts are going through your mind, or what thoughts are you having? And this can kind of help reveal some really deep fears, some deep concerns that then you can address and you can kind of add support to, because it can be really, really difficult to get out of those negative thoughts and those dangerous mindsets when you're struggling in this way. Or maybe you could ask something like, why do you think this is happening right now? Or why do you think this is happening for you? Or why now? Not in an accusatory tone, like, what have you done to cause this? But, has something changed? Or what do you think is going on? And why is it happening right now? And this question can really help you figure out maybe this, when it started, and was there something that changed with the environment? Was there something that changed with diet? Was there something that changed that could have triggered it? And it can really help you get to the root of what's going on and why it's going on right now. So as a spouse of someone who's dealing with chronic health issues, try to understand what they're dealing with. And in fact, try to understand it so well that you repeat it back to them. Ask them, so you're feeling like, repeat back to them what you heard them say and make sure that you get it right. Make sure that you, word for word, get it right, how they're feeling, what's going on. And just the act of doing that, of repeating it back to them, their own words, and getting it right, that helps them feel validated and it helps them feel heard. And those are such important components when it comes to healing. So some people out there, they don't have, an idiot for a spouse like my poor wife does. Some people out there have a really great support system and a very compassionate spouse However, they don't really need any help from the outside when it comes to invalidation. They can invalidate all by themselves. They can do it to themselves with how they talk to themselves and how they think about themselves. They can be hard on themselves. They can invalidate their own health struggles to the point of inaction, or to the point of where they're just suffering while they're just trying to push through. They're just trying to struggle and survive. And they've told themselves, oh, it's no big deal. It doesn't matter. I've got these issues, but I just really need to push through. My family needs me, or I don't have time, or whatever the excuse is. They can invalidate their own health concerns, even with a supportive spouse and supportive family. And so the same advice would apply. If that's you, if you're invalidating yourself, if you're minimizing your own health struggle, then I would encourage you to journal your symptoms and then write those same questions down, and ask yourself, where are you feeling stuck right now? What thoughts are you having about this situation? And I mean, that could be 100 thoughts, but what are the thoughts? What are the fears that you have about this situation? The what ifs, the I'm concerned about, I'm worried, and deal with those thoughts. And then, why do you think this is happening and why now? So don't invalidate yourself into isolation, being alone with these struggles. So maybe your invalidation isn't coming from your spouse. Maybe it's not coming from yourself, but maybe you've been to a healthcare provider and you've been invalidated. Maybe they've told you, oh, it's all in your head. Or maybe they've told you, well, the lab tests are normal, so that must mean that it's all in your head. And as a chiropractor doing functional medicine, doing nutrition, I usually get patients that have already been everywhere else. They've already tried everything else because I'm the last resort. Nobody wants to come to me as a first resort. I'm the last resort. Maybe that should be the name of my business, last resort. But I've worked with tons of patients. They've already been everywhere. They've already tried everything in terms of healthcare. And the one phrase that would get me so upset, that would get me so angry, is when a patient with real symptoms, with a real health struggle, when they are told by a quote unquote health professional that their condition and their symptoms are all in their head. This makes me so angry, because the arrogance of that provider to just assume that because they can't figure out the issue, it must mean that there is no issue. It couldn't possibly be that it's an issue that they can't figure out or they need help figuring it out. It must be there's no issue at all. The problem has to be in the person's head because I can't figure it out and I know everything. The arrogance to assume that, it just gets me so upset. And so what do you think that does to a patient when a doctor, someone who's there to listen, someone who's there to provide support, someone who's there to give them answers, tells them your issue isn't real, it's all in your head? It's crushing to them. If you're a healthcare provider listening to this, don't say that to your patient. Never say that to your patient. Even if it is all in their head, even if that were true, which I'm going to tell you very seldom it is true, but even if it were true, it doesn't help. That does not help them. It's not helpful. There's an issue and there's a reason for it. And maybe you can't figure it out, but recognize that and find someone who's willing to listen. Find someone who's got a little bit more time. Find someone that's got other methodology that might be able to find issues that you don't have the tools for, or you don't have the time for, or the expertise for. But don't tell someone it's all in their head. It doesn't help. I can confirm that. I could go into so much detail and go down so many different rabbit trails explaining so many different health struggles, real health struggles causing so much strain in a person's life. And they were told by doctor after doctor that there's nothing wrong with you, or it's all in your head. And maybe they were even put on antidepressant medication for something completely unrelated, just because the doctor, didn't figure out what was wrong with them. Well, here, take this. At least it'll make you not complain. And so I've seen that so often, but I ask a few questions and just a little bit of care and a little bit of concern, a little bit of investigation, and we figure out, oh, this person's living in mold, or this person's got parasites, or this person has Lyme disease, or they've got another very real condition and there's a real cause for their issues. And so if you've been there, if you've been invalidated by other practitioners or even by lab testing, because I'm going to tell you that their lab tests are not the be all end all, and they're not perfect. They give you a piece of information, but it's not the only information that's out there. There's so many lab tests that miss so many things that are very imperfect by the way they're used every day. And more research is coming out about how imperfect those lab tests are. But even if it's been lab test invalidated, it doesn't mean that there isn't an issue. But if you know in your spirit, okay, the lab test is negative, the doctor told me there's nothing wrong, but if you know in your spirit that there's something truly wrong, it may be just time to find a new practitioner. Nothing against the practitioner that you've got. Maybe they're great, but maybe they're just not aware of the type of issue that you have, or maybe they're just not able to offer you the type of support or the type of help that you need to heal. Maybe you just need someone with other tools or other experience or other expertise that can really help you get to the root of your issue. So don't give up your attempt to heal just because someone else can't see your struggle. And so if you're someone that's been isolated because of invalidation, here's my challenge to you. Your experience is real, but what if the problem isn't you? What if the problem is that you just haven't found your people yet? Maybe you haven't found the right practitioner. Maybe you just haven't met other people who've dealt with similar struggles that truly understand what you're going through. So my challenge to you is join a group or find a group that believes you. Just being seen can be a very important first step to recovery. And if you're someone who's been invalidated by your spouse, don't give up on them. Trust that they love you and that they want good things for you and that they're trying to help in their own way. Even if their way is unhelpful, they're still trying to help, but search for other methods to communicate with your spouse and help recruit them to your team. What I can tell you is that if your spouse is not on your team, if they don't agree with, if they're not aligned with what you're doing to try to heal and the process that you're going through to try to heal, I'm going to tell you, you're at least going to have a much more difficult time. They need to be in your corner and on your team. And so having someone in your house that you know is in your corner is such a powerful help to healing. And I've seen that over and over again, that supportive spouse making such a big difference in the effort to heal. Okay, so if you're someone that's been isolated by independence, and this person would say, I have to do this myself because I can't trust anyone, or they feel like they need to activate their self-preservation and hypervigilance to protect themselves. But instead, what they've done is they've actually created isolation and they've created burnout by trying to do everything on their own. And so as a practitioner, I'm going to tell you, it's actually kind of rare that you get the opportunity to treat someone who's in that stage of isolation by independence. It's rare because that person is rarely seeking help. But occasionally, you'll get that chance because someone's spouse has literally drugged them into the office, or the spouse is sick and tired of them complaining, and then, well, why don't you go see someone? Why won't you go see? Well, no, I just need to figure it out on my own. I just need to toughen up. They're sick and tired of the complaining, and so they literally drag the person into the office. I've seen that quite a few times. Or maybe the problem is when you see that person that's so independent, they've been drug in by their spouse, you can offer sound advice. You can offer time-tested protocols to help this person that's isolated by independence, things that have worked for almost every person. You can offer them the perfect help for their issue, but they almost always refuse to accept the help because in their minds, they need to do this on their own and they can't trust anyone. And it's their problem and they need to fix it on their own. And what I'm going to tell you is this is a very dangerous mindset. And if I brought two people into a room and I said, okay, you guys are my audience. you guys are going to bet $100,000 on which one of those two people with the exact same symptoms, which one is going to get better faster. And you're going to bet $100,000. Which person do you think is going to heal faster? Is it going to be person A that says, I'm going to do this all on my own and I can figure this out all on my own because I can't trust anyone? Are you going to put your money there on person A, or is it going to be on person B? And person B says, I realize that I'll need to get help to get through this health struggle, and I need the help of an experienced practitioner and the support of a community that understands what I'm going through and that can encourage me during this process. So if I put those two people in front of you, person A over here, I want to do it all by myself, and person B that says I need help from a practitioner and a supportive community, and you had to bet $100,000, how many of you would bet on person A? I'm going to guess almost zero. If there's one, I will take that bet. I will make that bet with you. But when you draw it out, when you write it down on paper, when I stage it like that, it sounds ridiculous to bet on person A, doesn't it? It sounds absolutely ridiculous. Well, of course that person isn't going to get better. But if we stop and think about it for a moment, how often have we been that exact person? Maybe it's different situations, maybe it's not health, maybe it's different things in our life, but where we've said, I'm going to figure this out all on my own. I don't need help. I don't need support. Or maybe I don't need you, God. I'm going to figure this out on my own. That's a dangerous mindset. When we write that out on paper, it sounds ridiculous. We would never bet money that that person is going to get the results that they're after. We're always going to bet on the person that looks for help and looks for support. Why would you want to be that person? Let me tell you, being that person is going to keep you right where you're at. You're going to stay stuck right where you're at. And so if that's you today, if you're that person that thinks that I've got to figure this out on my own, and if you're the independent type person, wake up. Recognize that there's power in community and there's power in healing in community. If you're independent, overly independent, find community, get help. It's going to go so much better and so much faster for you. And if you're not willing to do that, if you're looking for someone to bet, then give me a call and maybe we can work out a bet or something. But it's not going to go well for you if you think you're going to do it and figure it out all on your own. So sometimes when a person finds themselves in that hyper independent state and they just refuse to seek help, there's a reason for that. There's a reason why people get that way. And maybe it's because they fear rejection, or maybe they fear failure. They don't want to hear it. If they try something and it doesn't work, they don't want to hear about it. Maybe they fear the rejection that they would give to themselves if they got help or spent the money and they felt like it didn't work for them. Maybe they fear what they would even say to themselves or think about their own selves. But either way, those people feel like going alone for whatever reason is going to protect them from that rejection, or maybe protect them from that perceived failure from other people. But I'm here to tell you that mindset, again, is just going to keep you trapped right where you are. Let someone in, have a conversation with someone that you feel like you can trust regarding your health, and then recognize that healing is not a solo mission, okay? This isn't a solo mission. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Let's move on. Let's move on to the final type of isolation, and that is the person that's isolated by invisibility. This person says, I don't want to be a burden, or maybe I just don't want to be a complainer, or I don't want to cause problems for anyone else. This person has stopped sharing their struggle. It's either out of shame, or it's maybe out of fear, or possibly even exhaustion. Maybe they're just tired of trying and feeling like somebody's not listening or something, but they're suffering in invisibility. And I can't tell you how many times in practice that I've treated individuals in this state. They're isolated by invisibility. And you're thinking, well, maybe they wouldn't even come in for help. But what they'll do is they'll have this really big issue, this really silent struggle that they've been dealing with for years and years and years. But they'll also have another quote unquote minor issue. And so they'll seek help for the minor issue, and they'll come in and they'll ask for help and you'll work on them. And they'll never mention that major struggle that they've been dealing with for years. But what's really neat is sometimes accidentally, I say accidentally because you don't even know there's a problem there, but accidentally you help them with that deep issue, and they'll see a change with that deep issue. And they'll come in and say, wow, this thing is better. It's been bothering me for years and years, and I can't go here, or I can't do this thing, or I haven't been able to do this for years and years, and now it actually is getting a little bit better. And I'm shocked to realize that there's this other problem because they never mentioned it, they never talked about it. I didn't even know that there was this deeper issue. And so if you're working with clients, or if you're talking with somebody that just is so quiet and they're so reserved, it very well could be that there's a lot more going on under the surface that you aren't aware of, and that you don't even know about. And so these people, they come in and they finally get some changes start to happen, and then you recognize the struggle. And sometimes even then they don't always tell you. Sometimes I hear from other family members or other people like, wow, this person is totally different. This person, I remember I was working with people that worked in the same office, and a lady came in and she said, what did you do for this person? And of course I can't tell them. And, I just said, oh, I'm glad to hear there's a change, but I can't share with you anything that we're doing. And then they go back to the other employee, and the patient that we're both talking about comes into me and says, yeah, one of my coworkers said, if I ever stop seeing you, they're going to kill me, because they said I was really miserable to be around, and that I always was angry and upset before I started getting your help. And so I didn't know. I had never heard that. I had never known that this person was struggling so deeply with these issues. And so it was really neat to quote unquote accidentally help them. And it was even in a way that their coworkers noticed, and apparently threatened to kill them if they ever had stopped getting help. So if you're that person, if you're the person that's struggling silently, if you're the person that feels like, well, I don't want to bother you, or I didn't feel like you could help me, or maybe I don't feel like it's worth your time to talk about it, or worth anyone's time to talk about it. If you're that person that's been in that struggle, and it's been so long that you've been dealing with these things and you've just been suffering silently, it just breaks my heart to hear that you didn't feel like you were worth it, or you didn't feel like your issues were worth someone caring about. They are. You're not a burden. I mean, hearing that you've been struggling and suffering hurts me more than listening to the issue and trying to find a way to help. And so if you're that person, if you're the person that feels like you're a burden, or feels like you can't share about it, here's my challenge to you. If you've been isolated by invisibility, just realize that you're not too much. You're not too much of a burden. You're not annoying. Your story matters, and someone else needs to hear it. Even if you won't get help for yourself, recognize that getting help and conquering that issue could help someone else. And I heard these similar words from Dr. Julie Benvenuto, who was on this podcast a few episodes ago. And she said something that really resonated with me and it really struck me. But what she said was, oftentimes our greatest struggles can become our purpose. And essentially, what she's saying is that going through the struggle and coming out the other side can become part of our purpose. We can use that struggle and the process of going through that to help others, to encourage others, to bless others in similar struggles. Sometimes it's just by listening. Sometimes it's by validating, or sometimes it's offering support as they are going through similar struggles. And so I'm here to tell you that if you're the invisible one, someone else needs to hear your story. So speak up, share your pain with someone that you think that you can trust with that, and you'll be surprised that just sharing your pain opens the door for shared strength as well. And so if you've made it through all 6 of these hindrances to healing, God bless you, first of all. I hope this series has been a blessing for you, like it's been a blessing for me to put together. And I want to encourage you, if you're isolated and if you feel like you're alone in your struggle and that maybe you're not going to get well, or nobody cares, or you just don't want to bother anyone, let me tell you, you were not meant to heal alone. Chronic illness may have isolated you, but community can actually help restore, can help restore you. And one of the reasons why I do what I do now is that I realize that our struggle, my wife and I, Ginger and I, our struggle with Lyme disease and mold illness and Epstein-Barr virus and all these things, it wasn't a random event. It wasn't a surprise to God. God wasn't surprised by any of it. And so my wife and I felt called as we heal and as she's come through. And now we're on the other side and we're looking back and just remembering the difficulty and the struggle and the strain in our marriage, the strain in so many aspects of our lives that we went through. Now, on the other side of it, I feel called to reach out and try to help other moms who are in the same struggle, in the same situation. Moms that feel so sick and so tired that they can barely hang on, that they can barely force themselves to get out of bed, but they do it every day because they know that their kids are depending on them. They feel like their family's depending on them. And I'm here to tell you that standing on the other side of that journey with my wife, that healing is possible. There is hope. And we also recognize the importance of community, of doing this with a group that understands, that can validate, that can encourage, that can hold you accountable, can be such a powerful thing. And that's why we work with our clients as a group. We share our struggles, we share our victories, we encourage one another in the process and in the path to healing. Because when you're facing chronic fatigue, you're facing gut issues or Lyme disease or mold or burnout or so many other things, it's not about protocols. It's not about killing the bugs. It's about walking through this journey together with somebody who gets it. So if any part of this episode hit home for you, if you felt invalidated or isolated, or if you're just plain tired of trying to figure it out alone, I want to personally invite you to reach out to me. Go to my website, www.discoverhealthfm.com. Put in your email address there, or you can send me a direct message on Instagram at discoverhealthfm. That's my Instagram, I don't know, name or handle or whatever you call that, but @discoverhealthfm. And if you do that, I would be happy to do a free discovery call to see if this community could be the support that you've been needing, to see if you would be a good fit for that community and your issues would be a good fit for what we do. You don't have to figure it out on your own anymore. And I also would like to share with you a Bible verse that has encouraged me over the years in many different ways. And that verse is Hebrews 10:24-25. And it says this: "Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. And let us not neglect our meeting together, as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near." And this verse is talking about meeting together for worship, Christians getting together. And it's It's not an option. It's actually a command. And so many Christians don't understand the importance of corporate or together in-person worship. And when they don't understand that and they don't take advantage of that, if they're not part of it, they're missing out on one of the key components of faith, and that is community. There's power in connection and there's power in community. And I think God set it up that way from the very beginning in the Bible. And so often in the Bible, it talks about lost sheep, or it talks about sheep that go astray, they wander, or the lost coin. But Jesus is always seeking those that are lost and those that are isolated off on their own, because being apart from community, there's great danger. You're a sitting duck to the evil one. And that's so true spiritually, but it's also true for our health. And that truth has been validated by research. So thanks to those that are doing that type of research. Thank you to the author that I referred to, James Maskell, who wrote The Community Cure. Their information has been so valuable to me in preparing and creating this podcast, but also helping to create healing communities. And so thanks for those people that have done that research. And also thanks for listening, and thanks for joining me on this episode of Discover Health Podcast. Thanks for tuning in to the Discover Health Podcast. Remember, your health is a journey, not a destination. Keep exploring, and we'll see you next week.